Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Building Quality in Construction Projects. My name's Kevin Aguano. I'll be your host for today. This is one in a series of webinars we run approximately every 2 weeks throughout the year. This free webinar series gives people a chance to learn about different topics, explore new areas they might not normally be exposed to, and get a broader understanding of some of our instructors and their capabilities as well. These are free. You can earn professional development recertification credits for attending them, depending on what certifications you hold. These sessions are being recorded. We do not share the PowerPoint slides after the presentation, but we do post the videos on YouTube and on the procept.com website, so you'll be able to get access to the video recording afterwards. Usually within 48 hours after the completion of the webinar, the videos are posted and live on YouTube. Now, today's speaker, Sami Fahmy, is an incredible person. Dr. Fahmy is an author of numerous articles and publications. He's a great keynote speaker. He's been teaching project management for decades. He's one of our most seasoned project management instructors. And he's also a construction manager in his own right. He's a professional engineer and has been running construction industry projects for many, many years. He's a consultant. He is all around the person I turn to if I have questions about the construction industry. Have him here on our session today. We're really lucky to have him. Now, what he's going to start in a moment with the presentation. I just want to give you a couple rules. We're going to ask that you hold questions. We're going to do a Q&A session at the end. So not to interrupt him throughout the session, your microphones will remain muted, and he will continue with his presentation for about 45 minutes or so, cover all the topics he needs to, and then we're going to open up the line for question and answer. So you don't forget your questions along the way, you have the opportunity to enter them as you go into the questions window or the chat window that you can see in the web interface. If you are accessing this via a cell phone, unfortunately, chat is not available on the cell phone app, but I think questions might still be. You will have a way of entering your comments there. So either the questions window or the chat window, wherever you can find to enter them, go ahead. That will save them for us, and we will address them at the end of the session. Okay, I think that's it. The recording will capture Sami's voice, and the screen it won't capture any of the chats, so I will read them out at the appropriate time, and Sami will provide the answer. Excellent. I'm delighted to have him on the call. Dr. Fahmy, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin, and welcome everyone. I'm going to start actually with a very important statement that I discovered through research, I would say 20 years ago. Projects fail at the beginning, not at the end. And that's why we need to spend a lot of time building quality in your planning. That is extremely important, and that is the topic I'm going to focus on today, is building quality in your construction projects. It's actually a short session of a 2-day presentation or a workshop that I present with Kevin. Later on, I will tell you more about that. Okay, so how are we going to benefit from this? Basically, at the end of the session, you will be able to define quality and its dimensions, apply quality approach to all the knowledge areas, basically scope, quality, schedule, risk, and all the rest. As a result, you will be able to produce a very good plan for your project. Okay. You will also be able to describe any consequence of not doing what I am actually going to be talking about. And finally, you will apply this quality approach effectively and with confidence. I'm not going to go, Kevin did a good job introducing me, so I'm not going to do that, except I'm going to say that I am basically an authorized training partner with PMI. I'm also certified instructor with uh, Construction Management Association of America. So let's get into quality. So here's our agenda. I'm going to basically have a quick introduction to quality, and then I'm going to focus on how to build quality in scope, resources, stakeholder communication, procurement, and the rest. Basically, my approach will be I'm going to summarize everything that we cover in 2 days in basically 50 minutes. I will not cover every slide, but I will show you the slide and I will cover 1 or 2 items because, again, I have a very limited time, just to give you a taste of what you can expect. And you will learn a lot today, for sure. So how do you maximize the benefit? The first one is make sure you take notes, because write down what's important to you. Write down if you have any questions. Listens to others when people ask questions and so on. Participate by sharing your views on a chat. I will ask Kevin to basically keep track of that and keep me informed of what's going on. And very important, apply what you learn. So if you feel something that can fit into your work environment, sure, take it down and start applying it. And part of that is teaching somebody else. Okay, let's talk about quality. I want to start, quality is very dear to my heart. I taught quality in 1982 in NATE for 2-3 years. And since that time, it's very dear to my heart. And this is what I used to basically for opening. So basically, tell me in a chat, which is a better car, American cars or German cars?
Okay, we have no entries in the chat window yet, chat or the questions window. If you can just type in your response in the chat or
Just
question.
say American or German.
We have no responses yet.
Okay, basically, most people will say German cars. And then I move on to ask another question. So Mercedes or Volkswagen, which one is better?
Please type your answers in the questions window or the chat window. I have 1 vote for German finally coming in. There might be a bit of a delay.
It's about, yeah.
The internet can be slow sometimes.
Yeah. For the sake of basically saving time, let us proceed. Most people will say Mercedes, of course. Okay. But is that true? Your answer will depend on what is your definition of quality. So let's leave that for a minute, and then I will come to what is quality. I want you to read those 3 definitions of quality, and then I guess the chat is not working, and then just tell me which one do you prefer or which one do you use.
We did eventually get a couple votes for Volkswagen and 1 for Mercedes.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay, again, for the sake of time, let me continue. Basically,
so we had 1 vote for the second definition.
Ability of the product to meet stated or applied need. Okay, that's good.
That's all we have so far.
Okay, I prefer the third one. The third one is conformance to requirement. That was PMI old definition. Now PMI went back to using the ISO 9000 definition. But this one applies mostly to construction. Is when you have a requirement and you meet that requirement. So basically going back here, there is no such, so going back when you meet the requirement, so when you think about it, is that you meet the requirement or you don't. Are you with me? Can you see what I'm talking about here? So there is no good quality or poor quality. There is, are you meeting the requirement or not? So going back to Mercedes and your votes, when we think about Mercedes or Volkswagen, it really depends on what is your goal. What's your objective? If your goal is to show off, if you're a salesperson and you are taking a real estate client to show him some of the houses, I think Mercedes will need it, will do the job, will be a better way of approaching your goal. But if you want to get from point A to B, Volkswagen will do the job. Can you see? So there is no a better quality or less quality. It is, what is your objective? What is your objective? Very important. Another question I have.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, we have one comment. Somebody said both will meet the requirements based on the different market segments.
That's true too. That's true too, depending on what you want. Here's another question. Who defines quality? This is something very important we need to keep in mind.
So we're getting some answers in the chat window. Somebody says the project sponsor. Another person says the customer, although personally I think those could be the same person in some circumstances.
Yeah.
Government regulations and standards, somebody said.
Yeah.
Another person who said the customer.
Okay, great. And you are all correct. I just want to make sure that it is not the project manager. Many project managers feel that they can set the quality, and that is not right, folks. Please remember, quality is defined by the sponsor or the customer or the client. And you need to record that. And you, of course, are going to get to how do you define quality by setting standards. You need to make sure that those standards are listed and they are very specific. Okay, very important. Okay, let's move on. So why quality is very important in construction? The first one and most important, it saves you time and money. Simply because it reduces rework. When you set the standards and follow it, you have a guide. People have the guide. The team has a guide. It reduces waste, of course. Okay, so basically a lean approach. And if it reduces waste, means that you, as a company, making more money. It's very important. Meets client requirement and recognition. As if you follow quality standards, you will be recognized in the industry that this particular company has quality product as an outcome of their work and so on. So that's very important. Of course, you produce a better product, and finally you have a satisfied client and repeat business. So quality connect directly with the company success, and for you, employment. If the company gets satisfied clients and they stay in business, you will stay employed as well. That is extremely important. Any questions?
Yeah, we have a comment from Rashid who's suggesting a possible seventh item, no surprises.
Yes, that's a good one too. Thank you, Rashid. I appreciate that. I will add that actually. That's very good. Okay, let's move on. So I wanted to focus on what does building quality in mean? Does anybody know that? Does anybody help me with that?
Somebody commented that this is a play on words because you're talking about construction projects. So building quality could mean the quality of the structure you're building versus building quality in, which means you're adding quality to whatever you're doing.
I'll take the second one. Is adding quality or ensuring quality, especially at the beginning of the project. Making sure that quality is built in initially. So if you are doing a product, if you are doing a construction, if you are building something, you do it right the first time. Let me give you a perfect example. I bought a Volvo. This is must be at least 20 years ago. And the first week we had a problem with the electrical system. I said, okay, fine. I just took it to the dealer and he fixed it. Go back, get it. By the time I get home, it's not working again. So I went back next day, left it with them for a day, come back. So I did that 3 times. Later on, they sent me a questionnaire. What do you think of our service? I said, terrible. So next day, I got a phone call from the manager. And he said, why do you say terrible? We fixed it for you. I said, yes, you did fix it for me after 3 attempts. And almost half a day or more lost from my work. Who's paying for that? So quality is, fine, we had a problem. I give it to them. They should do a quality product. You should check it twice before you give it to me. That is what building quality in me. Very important, especially in the planning phase. Here's some quick general approach to quality. The first one is making the commitment. And now I'm talking more about the organization. I heard that actually on one of the sites. He said, if the boss doesn't care, why should I? If the boss doesn't care, why should I? So quality start at the top, folks. Very, very important. You need to reinforce it repeatedly to your staff, to your people. If you are the project manager, you need to focus on quality, talk about it all the time. Then they know that you care about their quality or the quality of the product, and they will basically ensure that quality actually happens. Also, you need to manage quality, plan quality, and so on. So I will be covering those knowledge areas in building quality in. So I'm going to talk about building quality in scope. As I said, I'm not going to cover everything on the slide, but at least you will understand what I mean. So basically, the first one in ensuring quality in scope is understand the client needs. This is very important. Making sure that you create a customer needs statement that need to be written by you as a project manager or a project lead, and making sure that you understand what the client actually needs. One of the things that I did, I was designing actually, I was head of design for a team for RCMP, and I hired an architect to help me with that. And RCMP was very, very specific about the layout of their detachment to allow them to get out in less than half a minute. So I actually sent somebody to live with them for a whole week to see how they operate, how do they respond to the calls, and so on. You need to understand that before you can get to basically your design and so on. The other area that I want to talk about is basically, okay, let's talk about this one here. Which one should I talk about? Minimizing potential scope changes. This is extremely important, especially in the front end. Especially in the front end. How do you do that? Basically, make sure you ask the right questions. Make sure you clarify what they talk about. Make sure that you encourage the client to change their mind as early in the game, not later. Make sure that you involve all the stakeholders. Make sure that operating and maintenance people are involved. Very, very important and very critical. Human resources, again, human resources is very important part of your projects. Team is critical. I would say, okay, how about number 3? Recruit wisely. Let me give you a very important statement again. You as a project manager, you are as good as your team. What does that mean? You need to start picking your team because they represent you. You need to be a servant leader. Look after your team. They will look after you. It costs a lot of money to hire people. So make sure that you hire the right people. I used to work with University of Alberta for 10 years. And what happened, they, of course, as any university, they try to hire the best professors in the world, actually. So they bring people from China, or bring people from England, and so on. And they spend quite a bit of money, maybe up to $50,000 per person. And all of a sudden, people come, stay 1 year, and leave. That's not recruiting wisely. And what they discovered, that the wife does not like the cold weather, and she's not happy, the kids are not happy, and so on. So what they did to overcome that, when they bring somebody for an interview and he's successful, now you bring the wife with you and stay here for a week. You bring the wife and the kids, stay for a week, just to make sure that they are happy. And they come in the winter time, then they can experience what winter like in Canada and so on. So recruit wisely. It is a very good idea to spend as much time as you can to do it right. Okay, number 3, building quality in stakeholder relationships. This is extremely important. I'll talk about number 3. Inform and involve stakeholders, especially at the beginning of the project. Let me give you actually a story that will justify what I'm saying. I have a client who have 3 projects. I have 1 project manager working with them, and those 3 projects are late, lots of changes, over expenditure, and lots of issues with them. So I talk to the client. I say, Mr. Client, those 3 projects, I want to have a chat with you. What do you think? What is going on from your side? He said, they're perfect. I said, oh, are you happy with the project outcome? Are you happy with the project management performance? And so on. Oh, yes. everything is fine, everything is okay. I said, they are over budget. He said, yeah, we have the money, we know that, and they are a little bit late. That's acceptable too. I said, okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. So I went to Jim, who was the project manager. I said, Jim, what is your secret? What is going on with those guys? He said, Sami, let me tell you, my job is to keep those guys informed and involved all the time. Anytime I'm going to make a decision, they are involved. Anytime I'm going to have a change, they are involved. Anytime I do anything, they are involved. I said, yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. So if they make the decisions, if they do everything, and all he does is guide them. We need to make a decision here. Here is 3 options. Here are the advantage and disadvantage of each one. What do you think? They make the decisions. There is no way they are going to come back and say, you know what? I don't think that change will make sense, because they did it. Very important. The other thing that is, which one should I talk about here? I don't know if I have time to talk anymore. Number 7, client satisfaction is another very important area that you need to focus on. Starting from planning phase, make sure that the client is involved. Don't wait until the end of the job to send a survey and ask, how did we do? Do it phase by phase, do it by week, whatever you can do is involve them and take those feedback and give it back to them. You give me this feedback, and this is what I did about it. And this is what you expect to see next time or next phase or whatever it is. If you ask for feedback, make sure that you are giving them feedback on their feedback. Very, very critical. Let's move on. Building quality in communication. This is extremely important. Let me give you another story here. When I was U of A, I conducted a research for 10 years. We collected 5,000 construction problems. There was a repetition of 2,000, so roughly 3,000 construction issues. We investigated those issues, and with the students, we tried to find out what is the root cause of these problems. Guess what? Communication was the root cause of almost 95–98% of the problems. Think about that. If you also look at communication, or basically you will find that it tops the list of fundamental skills needed by the project manager. And there is a good reason for that. We find actually, or the most common communication problems, well, like we have 34 communication problems. At the very top was active listening. People don't listen. People always think of what I'm going to say next. Okay, so pay attention, especially one of the most important skills for any leader is their ability to listen. You listen with your eyes, you listen with your whole body. You don't listen with your ears only. You have to listen with your whole body. You have to move closer, move forward. You have to have an eye contact. You have to ask questions. We call it active listening, that you just sit down or lay back and listen. You need to ask questions, clarifying questions. to clarify misunderstanding and so on. I think I spent enough time in this one. So please listen and ask clarifying questions. And of course, there are 12 skills of listening. I guess there's no room for it now. But the most important part is use your whole body to show the other person that you are listening. Number 5, building quality in procurement. Procurement, I give it a lot of slides. I didn't delete all those slides, but anyway, procurement is a very critical aspect of any project, especially oil and gas. Okay, like construction, it's not too much, but oil and gas can be up to maybe 50–70% is procurement of equipment and so on. Again, you need to establish clear expectations. And that includes 2 parts. The first part is clear expectations with your procurement officer. If you work in a large organization, usually you have a procurement department and you assign a procurement officer. You need to make sure that you have clear expectations with this person. What do you expect from him or her? What is their roles? What are they expected to do for you? What is their contribution? What's your contribution? And you need to do that at the very beginning of the project in order to make sure that things will go in the right time with the right speed. This is extremely important. That is one side. The other side is clear expectation from the client. What we found in our survey that most of the problems that come up in constructions as a result of unrealistic expectations. The client has unrealistic expectations and he doesn't share it. So it is our responsibility as project managers to basically make sure that you take it out of their brain and put it in writing. Is this what you are expecting from me? Don't leave it at the end where you are expecting to take over and say, oh, I was thinking that you are going to do that for us. That happens so many times. So you need to spend enough time in the planning phase trying to make sure that the expectations are actually exchanged. And there is no implied expectations. You have done that for me before. Yes, but this is a different project. This is a unique project. Another item that is very quickly I'm going to cover is use qualified suppliers. With products and so on, with a consultant, contractor, make sure you have pre-qualifications. Make sure that you are hiring the right person for the right job, because that can have a major impact on quality for the rest of the project. Spend enough time in the front end, pre-qualifying consultant, pre-qualifying contractors to make sure, and don't go for the cheapest guy as well. Very important. Let's move on. Building quality in schedule. Okay. And the first and the most important find out is the time, the most critical element. Number 2, use realistic schedule. What do I mean by that? If you're gonna start with unrealistic schedule, it doesn't matter how much effort you put in, you will be late. Make sure that you challenge the client at the very beginning of the project. Why November 30th? If it is late by 2-3 weeks, what will be the impact? Make sure that you clarify their expectations. Ask them, how did they arrive at that time? Did they pull it out of the air? Maybe. So you need to confirm that. You need to confirm that. Another area here, where is it now? I don't know. Yeah, number 6, client supplied equipment. Client supplied equipment. Let me give you a story to basically justify that. The worst thing that any client can do is to supply the equipment. Anybody knows why? I always like to have much more interaction, but that's okay.
Farhad said because they get the cost off your books.
That's true, but they are taking a big risk. Many times I have an actual case where the client was, it was an oil and gas company, and they are supplying 150 huge pumps. And of course, they said, we need to save money. And again, we need to get them money off our books and so on. So they purchased or ordered all the equipment, and they get a delivery date of March 25. So we said, okay, March 25, to cover ourselves. I was sort of involved in it. And I said, just give yourself 2 months. If you're going to be March 25th, make it May 25th. They said, that's too much. I said, please do that. Anyways, they did that. Of course, the delivery was done partially August 31st. Now, everybody can guess what happened. You have a huge claim from the contractor. We expected on May 25th, and now it is August. And they have to pay for it very dearly. So be careful. Be careful when you accept a client basically ordered material. Sure, they save money, but they paid through the nose much, much more than what they actually saved from the contractor, 10% more or whatever it is.
We have another comment from
Marsha. Sir, yes.
Yeah, one more comment from Marsha. Marsha says there's a good side to it, though. If the client makes the order, it gives them skin in the game.
That's fine. If the client would like to be involved in that, make sure that they are aware of the consequence of their decision. So if the client makes a decision like, let's look at the risk. What are the chances of the product being late? I used to work with RCMP, and the RCMP insisted, because they were the only source of security doors, security toilet, and security windows. Nobody else manufactures them other than their own shop. And they are late every time, and we pay extra every time. Again, they are aware of it and they do it. Okay.
Ricardo makes a comment. He says they become liable.
Yes, it's true. They become liable, but it takes away money from the project. You are paying extra. They are liable, but I feel that I am there to protect the client. Our job as project manager is, I'm working for the client. So I need to protect their interests, make sure that they are in the safe side, they don't pay extras unnecessary. And in this case, it was unnecessary. Okay, let's move on. Number 7, I'm quite conscious of time. How to build quality and risk management. Basically, I think number one is the best. Involve contractors in the design. I have been involved in design for 20, 30 years, and one of the best things that I usually do is to involve sub-trade and contractors during the design. Uh, I know some people will come and say, if you involve the contractor during the design, you are going to give him an advantage over other people. I got that from my own procurement people. And what I did, I contacted the Edmonton Construction Association at the time. I said, guys, this is what we're planning to do. Can you ask your members if, in fact, we give that particular contractor or two that work with us an advantage? What happened? The answer came back. It is actually a disadvantage because the contractor knows the job and he will account for everything, and he end up actually being much lower on the list, not at the top as a low bidder or whatever it is. Another thing that very dear to my heart is basically what is it here? I thought I would talk about it here. Consider turning risk into opportunity. I would like to talk for a few seconds on this one. Basically, in responding to risk during the planning stage, we usually use what we call, or what I call, ATM. If anybody of you remember, ATM is avoid or accept, transfer for T, M, mitigate, ATM, okay? So you avoid, transfer, mitigate, or accept. What I would like to add, this is my own, by the way, it's not PMI. PMI did not have it yet, but I've been talking about it with them for years. Add opportunity. Think about looking at the risk and turning the risk into an opportunity. It needs change of your mind, change the frame. How do you think about it? Let me give you an example. We were doing a project in Yellowknife, and we were putting it on piles. Of course, Yellowknife is a rocky area. So anyways, you're drilling for a pile, and here comes a spring. Water come rushing out, filling the whole area with water. Everybody was in panic. Oh my God, how are we gonna stop it? How can we fill that, hole and all this? And one of the guys said, "Hey, why fill the hole? Why don't you take the water, channel it, put a pipe on it, put a valve on it, direct it to a tank, and we'll use the water." And that's what they did. And they end up having free water in Yellowknife. Water in Yellowknife is very expensive. Free water in Yellowknife, and put a very nice garden at the top of the building. Look at this. Rather than looking at the problem and try to eliminate the problem or reduce it or whatever, no, I'm going to turn it into an advantage. That needs a change of frame of mind. You need a different way of thinking. But certainly that is a possibility. Let's move on. Building quality in cost. As I said in the schedule, make sure that you start with a realistic estimate. Because if it is not, you're going to overspend, and people will complain. So make sure that you have a realistic estimate. Number two is actually much more important, and that will reinforce number one. Make sure that you estimate, or you get an estimate based on 3 ways of estimating, not only one. Make sure that you have an experienced person doing the estimate or looking at the estimate. Make sure that you use work breakdown structure to ensure that you have a quality estimate. So I encourage you to use work breakdown structure. In addition to work breakdown structure, you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing. Let me give you another example. We were doing a project in Medicine Hat, building a hospital, and I was looking after that. And they did the estimate, I think it was at that time $14 million or something, and they gave it to me to review. And I said, guys, there's something wrong with that estimate. They said, look, we use work breakdown structure. Everything is there. I said, look, I don't care what you use. There's something wrong with that estimate. Simply, what I did is I just compared it with another hospital that we finished 2 years ago that's cost 16 million. And I said, this cannot possibly cost 14. It's almost the same, maybe a touch more. But anyway, we discovered that they forgot the equipment part. They did not include the equipment. It was not part of the work breakdown structure. So as much as I say, use work breakdown structure to help you get the right estimate, more accurate estimate, but you also need to have it done right. You need to have it complete. You need to review it. You need to include somebody that has the knowledge and the experience. So you make sure that you use basically 3 ways to do that. We talked about working breakdown structure. Yes, I think number 10 is another good one. Use proper contingency amount. Let me ask you a question. How do you estimate contingency? Anybody in the chat?
One person says they add a percent across the whole project based on the level of risk of the project.
Oh, okay. I think you are mixed up now. How do you add a percentage? Okay, let me just summarize. Thanks very much for the answer. The traditional way of basically adding a percentage is not valid anymore. So my best advice to you is make sure that you base your estimate on risk. How much risk? What are the risk elements? What is the probability? What's the impact on cost? And put them together. I usually take 75% of whatever comes out and say that is my contingency. There is a lot of advantage of using risk, because I used to use 10% or 15% for additions, renovation, whatever it is. But I always get the client, like I put 15% for a renovation. The client said, no, that's too much, 5%. I said, look, you know, the tradition is 15. He said, I don't have any money. Now, I did that about 4 or 5 months ago, where we calculated based on risk, and it came, I think it was $650,000 contingency. The client said, no, try to bring it down to 200. I said, what do you mean bring it down? Here is the risk. This is the basis of my estimate. If you want to give me 250, no problem, but you take the risk for the other 400. We talked about that, and we end up getting the money that we wanted, because he doesn't want to take any risk. He said, you take the risk. I said, if I want to take the risk, I need to cover myself with the contingency and so on. So we agreed that he's going to give me the 650, and I was I was basically doing consulting work with them, and the project manager was extremely happy with that. So spend the time as early as you can in the project to handle all this knowledge area, simply because quality is never an accident, folks. It's always the result of high intentions, sincere effort, and intelligent direction and skillful execution. I'm going to leave that with you. Now we have 5 minutes for questions. Sorry, I took a little bit more than I wanted, but that's it. Okay, turn it over to you, Kevin.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Now is the time for questions. So if you have a question you would like to ask Dr. Fahmy, please enter it into the chat window or the questions window. Some of you have been entering comments and little questions along the way, so you know exactly where that is. So just type your questions in there. Okay, while you're typing your questions, I have a couple that had been accumulated during the presentation. I'm going to read them in order. The first one was from Marcia. Marcia says, in scope, you focus on client needs. I work in residential housing construction. Why would I care about requirements? That's a problem for the architects. We just follow the design and build to specs.
Of course, she is right. You're right. But again, very important to consider in the big picture, who are you building for? You need to think about, are you building for what age group? For example, if you are building for people that over 60 years old, is different than normal people, younger people, and so on. So you, in your case, in a bigger picture, you need to consider who are you building for.
Okay. Next question was from Walter. What can we do in today's construction market when most of my team have just joined the company and may leave after our project when they're hired away by our competitors? There is no recruiting wisely when we struggle just to get enough workers. Any ideas?
Oh, that's a big topic. Okay. The only thing that you can do is, if you look at research, you will find that most people leave organizations because of the boss, not because of money, because they are not involved, because they are not part of the team. That is what research says. Most people leave organization because they are not involved, the boss they don't like, and they are not involved. They are not, like, I remember I was talking with a guy and he left the company after a year, and I said, why did you leave it? You know, why do you change? You know, it stays 3 years. He said, Sami, I don't feel challenged. Everything is routine. I want to learn, but I'm happy with the boss. I'm happy with this, but they are not challenging me. So one of the areas is they don't get challenge work that will challenge their career and so on. Okay. Next one.
Next question is from Molu. Now I'm going to try and reword this a bit because it was a little bit confusing, so bear with me. Molu says, on your slide you say the medium is the message. Can you clarify? For example, I talk to a contractor on the phone, my medium. How does that relate to what I say, the message?
Very good one. Okay. Let me give you an example. Okay. The medium is not only the telephone message, but also the timing of the call, or how do you present it. Okay. If you have a bad message and you give it, like, let's say they are firing certain people, they give it to them on Friday before Christmas. Does it have the same impact if they give it to them after Christmas? Of course not. So make sure that how you put the message across. Medium is one, your tone of voice is the most important. Again, if you think about communication, communication is composed of three parts: the words, the tone of voice, the body. If you think about the impact of the message, 50% of the impact is from your body. 40% of the impact is from your tone. 10%, or actually it is 7%. I make it 10 just to make it easy so you will remember. 50, 40, and 10. 10% is the words. Just 10%. So pay attention to the medium, which is the tone and the body, and of course the timing of the message and so on. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fahmy. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much, everybody, for today's webinar. I'd like to remind you that wherever you found out about this webinar, you'll find others posted as well. As I said, we're running these roughly every 2 weeks on a wide range of topics on project management, leadership, team building, conflict resolution, and many related topics, change management, etc. So please keep an eye out, and I hope to see you at a future session. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.